Welcome, Warriors. We're back with another episode on our Vigor Warriors Channel 2. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope you guys are keeping on your purpose. Hoping that you're not getting tempted by society or getting thrown off your path. Um, it's hard. Things, go in different ways, and some things happen well, some things don't happen well to you. But as Epictetus said, you can't control those things. All you can control is your reaction. And so no matter what happens, good or bad, don't get to the point where you get depressed or discouraged, and keep moving forward, and keep moving ahead. And like I said, as I longer on this journey, I realize how important this is and how much power you have, and that you have to continue keeping going, and keep going, battle on forward every day, and eventually you're going to win out. And the amount of fear and anxiety that I have now is so much less than I had. It's just incredible to kind of see and notice. And so, whether you're involved in situations where there's drama, or whether you're involved in any kind of legal action, or if you're involved in kind of, job loss, thing like that, or economics and all the craziness that's happening around us, you've got to stay strong. This is what, is expected that God wants you to do. And it's also expected of the women and family in your lives, and people who are expected to kind of follow your leadership. And that's what we're talking about, leadership. So we're talking about being a leader. We're talking about the strength. It's not physical strength. And this is something that women have talked about over the years. It's not the physical strength that you have. It's more of the mental strength, and continue to battle on and move ahead and go forward. Okay? All right, so let's talk about another one of the biblical verses, and I want to go back to Genesis at the beginning, and let's talk about Adam and Eve a little bit. And so lessons from Adam and Eve. So let's kind of talk about Adam and Eve a little bit, because I do think that this is a very interesting and in some ways symbolic, but also a lot of very practical types of things when it comes to us on our journey. So a number of different issues that we see with Adam and Eve. And so as you come into this life as being born, you're living kind of in a life of paradise, right? Your parents taking care of you, everything is going well, and you feel well, and there's no, no issues. I mean, yes, you may get upset at times, and you may have a fit, and, as a child, you may get upset, but it's not something that you realize, you look back on, you realize you had it pretty well made because people were taking care of you. The same thing happened with Adam and Eve. I mean, they were living in paradise. They did not recognize the world around them, certainly, and all the evils around them, but they recognized it like a child. They recognized the people and the happiness they had within themselves. And so the first lesson to kind of learn from this is the fact that you're seeing, you have to kind of see the whole totality of life around you, and realize things are not just physical, but they're also energy, spiritual types of things that are around you that make a big difference. And so as a baby, you're not noticing all the dangers around you. As an adult, you notice that more. The same thing with Adam and Eve. They did not notice all the things around them because they were very much in the paradise. And this is what happens when God is with you, because God is supporting you. And so as you look at this, that's one of the verses of the Bible that I've always found interesting, is the fact that people, they did not see any of the dangerous things around them at first. And I think that's what we do when we come into this world. Now, and I know I experienced it up to probably age 12, 13 years old, where, yeah, there was issues, but I knew that the Vietnam War was, kind of moving along, and there might be a possibility that I would get drafted if I get old enough, and the war continued. Now, the war ended, in 1975. So, I wasn't drafted. I was put on selective service. Back there, I think that was a term called, but I never got to the point where I was drafted. But the thing is that you get to the point where you know that something's happening, but you're still being protected by your family. In this case, your mother and father, or family you have, your extended family. And the idea is that you're very, you're basically seeing things, but you're not really seeing everything out there. And there's a reason why they're protecting you, because you're not ready to deal with all those. And the same thing happened with Adam and Eve. Now, what comes along is temptation. And I saw that when I was 12, 13, 14 years old, and everybody else sees that. We see that. I mean, you look at the industry out there, and so many more people now are involved in watching porn and all kinds of sexual types of innuendos and all kinds of stuff that's out there. They watch all those type of things because sex sells, and so does violence and sex, and those things are at the top of the ladder when it comes to the Ten Commandments and the sins that we do. And so we're talking about temptation. The serpent did not go after Adam, you notice that. The serpent went after Eve. And now why did it happen? Well, it's almost like as a child, advertising, especially with things like Barbie and all these other toys that you have, they go after children because they know the children then go to the parents and persuade the parents to buy them toys. And so it's a very great, slick type marketing thing. I remember one time taking my daughter to a toy store, and she had mentioned she wanted a Barbie, and I said, well, Barbie can't cost that much money, right? It's only like $10, $15 at the time, right? So we went, and all of a sudden now she's asking for all kinds of other stuff, and I couldn't understand this at first. She was asking for the house and the car and the truck, or not truck, but the Jeep or something like that, and all kinds of other clothes and accessories. And I didn't know that until I actually saw the commercial. And what the commercial does is show the doll, in this case, with all the other accessories around it. And so because of that, it didn't, in fine print, it says, well, accessories not included, but you wouldn't see that, especially as a child. If you're a small child, you're not going to see that. And so obviously it's really kind of elusive advertising. And what ends up happening is that people tend to see that as a child, and then they go talk their parents into it. And so, I couldn't say no to my daughter at the time. And so I got out of there $600 later when I was only going to go in there for a $15 doll. So this is the kind of stuff that happens. But once again, it's that temptation that goes from that. So the second lesson is that watch out for the serpents and the temptation. The temptation is very strong. And at some point, you have to kind of say no to that. And so in this case, the tempter went to someone who could actually persuade Adam, and that was Eve. And so the ladies in the audience here, beware that a lot of the temptation also falls through you. And temptation is something that you have to be very careful of. We talk now about the dating situation and the scenario we have out there with people talking about large body counts and OnlyFans and all this other kind of stuff. Realize, guys, that this is all temptation. And this also leads to a lot of other things. And so if you talk about people who have problems with, watching too much porn, they also probably have trouble, with gambling addictions and all kinds of other types of things and drinking and all drugs, they all kind of go together. And all these type of things are things that we're warned against, through, the Bible, God, and the people around us, because we know that these things are very harmful and could lead a lot to self-destruction. And I do believe a lot of people are heading towards self-destruction here. And this is the same thing that happened in the Roman Empire, and a lot of these other empires where they kind of destroyed themselves within because they couldn't control the temptation. And they became addicted to the temptation. It's almost like you put yourself in your own cage and don't realize it until you can't get out. And this is something that happens a lot. So Eve in this case, took a bite of the apple, believing that the serpent who said there's a better life and that God is misleading you and all this other kind of stuff. And we have to realize that God, had kept it from them for a purpose, that he wanted them to live in happiness and harmony and paradise, and didn't really want to focus on the things. Now, you could argue that's good or bad. I mean, I would never argue with God's viewpoint on things, but you could argue that, oh, well, they should show them people everything. Well, once again, God knows human nature. We've known it for thousands of years. And people get tempted. A lot of people have trouble saying no to things. having trouble not being able to kind of give in to temptation. And temptation could be eating something and not fasting. It could be something like buying a gambling ticket or something on a lottery. It could be going ahead and having intercourse or having an affair with someone who's not your wife or husband. All these things are temptations, right? You could have a lot of these type of things, and you have to kind of say to yourself, how do we stop how to stop that? And so that's the lesson there. And the third lesson then obviously is that then Adam then got persuaded by Eve to also bite the apple, and all of a sudden now he's getting tempted. And this is why we always have to take a look at the people around us, and this is why we're on retention. We're not going to be in that situation where we're going to be able to we have a little more objectivity for the people around us. Don't allow that Eve to have you bite that apple, to be able to see now all the things around you. And so they saw their nakedness once they had the apple, and they were hiding behind the fig trees and all things like that, so God would not notice them. And once again, God then realized that they knew this, and they found out, ate the apple. Now, yes, Satan, the serpent, was exiled, and that's between God and the tempters. But we have to look at this from the side of us and saying, okay, we should not have been tempted. Eve should not have been tempted, and then Eve should not have tempted Adam to be able to have this, and Adam should not have relented into that temptation. So a lot of things here to kind of break down when it comes to that sort of thing. But the bottom line really is that you have to be strong enough to not be tempted. Now, I can say that at 60 years old, but and I know we have a lot of demographic viewers, 25 and 34, and a lot of you, and I went through those ages, and I know it's very difficult to not be tempted. You're told by so many things around you in society that this is the way to be. You should be, very vigorous and sexual out there and all kinds of stuff like that. And I'm going to tell you that's the opposite. I think you need to control your energy, control that. Those are the most powerful thing you have, until the point where you actually want to have a child. This allows you to focus on being the best you can be, and now you're going to be a lot more objectively focusing on goals and making yourself look better. You're gonna look, your body's gonna look better, and that's happened to me. And I'm 6 years old, so I've seen a big difference since I've been on this for, I think, 505 days now, something like that. And when you do that, all of a sudden you see, big increases, right? And then all of a sudden, now you're looking then and trying to succeed more, even though things are against you. I mean, we have a lot of barriers in the state that I'm in here. Things are going on, but you got to keep fighting forward and keep looking at trying to succeed no matter what people are putting in front of you, right? And that's the type of thing that you become strong with, because you're on your plan, on your retention. So guys, a lot of great lessons to learn. I'd encourage you to go back and look at the Bible and look at Genesis, in the first chapter, and look at Adam and Eve, right? We also can talk about Cain and Abel as well, and looking at some of those type of things as well. But the idea is that, temptation, greed, those things cause a lot of problems, right? And so you give a lot of emotions out there. And, if you're jealous and you're, creating those issues with the Ten Commandments, I'll probably do one on Ten Commandments as well. But the idea is that you're basically kind of focusing on, committing sins. And the sins are, you may think, well, that's biblical. And yes, it is related to God, but it's also a very practical type of thing as well. And all religious texts have these type of things in them. They have things you should not be doing. And there's a reason for that. Over thousands of years. I mean, we're not a new age generation here, even though people may call that way. I mean, people are people. People have always been people. And they're always going to be the same, committing the same types of things. And so whether it's greed, jealousy, envy, committing sexual adultery and those type of things, we're just seeing it at a higher pace. And this is usually happens to a society that reminds me of Babylon, Sodom and Gomorrah, and the Roman Empire. It looks like the same kind of things are happening, and the only way to control that is find those few people, the 1% club, who starts off on a different path and realizes what men and women should be without focusing all day long on, conquests and sexual natures and things like that. So, all right, guys. Well, I hope this one helped. We'll be back again next time with another episode on Vigor Warriors 2 and the 1% Club. Until then, have a great day.